Have you ever felt completely lost, not just on a map, but in life itself? This is the story of Sarah, a young woman who thought she was just learning a new skill, but ended up charting a course through the biggest storm of her life. Sarah had always been a city girl, reliant on her phone for everything. The idea of reading a physical map seemed like an ancient art. But after a tough breakup left her feeling adrift, she decided she needed a radical change. She signed up for an intensive orienteering course in the remote mountains, a place where GPS signals feared to tread. Her friends thought she was crazy. "You'll be eaten by a bear," they joked. But Sarah was determined. She needed to learn how to find her own way, literally and figuratively. The first few days were a struggle. The cryptic symbols, the contour lines that looked like spaghetti, the constant fear of getting it wrong. It was overwhelming. Her instructor, a weathered old mountaineer named Ben, was patient but firm. "The map doesn't lie," he'd say, tapping the paper with a calloused finger. "You just have to learn its language. Trust the map, trust your compass, and most importantly, trust yourself." Slowly, day by day, the lines on the paper started to make sense. She learned to read the land, to see the ridges and valleys not as obstacles, but as signposts. Each small success, finding a hidden stream or a specific rock formation, was a jolt of confidence. It was more than just navigation. It was a conversation with the wilderness. The final test was a solo, 2-day trek to a distant peak. Sarah felt a nervous excitement. She packed her gear, triple-checked her route, and set off at dawn. The first day was perfect. The sun was out, her navigation was spot on, and she felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. She was in control, following a path she had chosen, guided by her own skills. She made camp by a crystal-clear lake, feeling proud and capable. But the mountain had other plans. That night, the weather turned. A storm, more ferocious than anything forecasted, rolled in with a vengeance. The wind howled like a phantom, and rain lashed down, turning her campsite into a muddy mess. Fear, cold and sharp, began to creep in. Her first instinct was to panic, to curl up and wait for it to be over. The old, helpless Sarah wanted to take over. But then, Ben's voice echoed in her mind. "Trust the map. Trust yourself." Huddled in her tent, by the dim light of her headlamp, she didn't just look at her map. She studied it. It wasn't just paper and ink anymore. It was her lifeline. She saw a small, abandoned ranger cabin, marked on a lower elevation, nestled in a more sheltered part of the valley. It was off her original course, a difficult route through a dense forest, but it was her best chance for survival. The storm wasn't just a weather event, it was a test. At first light, she packed her soaked gear and began the most challenging navigation of her life. The visibility was near zero, the trail was gone, washed away by the rain. Every step was a deliberate choice, a calculation of bearing and distance. She pushed through thorny bushes, scrambled over slick rocks, her compass her only reliable guide. There were moments of doubt, moments when the sheer exhaustion made her want to give up. But every time she felt lost, she would stop, take a deep breath, and consult her map. It was her anchor in the chaos. Finally, after hours that felt like an eternity, she saw it through the mist, the faint outline of a cabin. The relief was so overwhelming, she nearly collapsed. Inside the simple wooden structure, safe from the storm, she didn't just feel dry, she felt reborn. She hadn't just found a shelter. She had found a strength within herself she never knew existed. The storm outside was still raging, but the storm inside her had finally passed. Sarah came down from that mountain a different person. She had gone up seeking to learn how to read a map, but she came down knowing how to read herself. She learned that sometimes the most direct path isn't the right one, and that the biggest challenges are what teach us to navigate our own lives. We all face storms, big and small. The key isn't to avoid them, but to have the tools, the courage, and the self-trust to chart our way through. So, what's your map? What's the skill you can learn that might just be the thing that gets you through your next storm? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If this story inspired you, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more stories of human resilience. See you in the next video.